Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Professor David J. De Los Reyes. For tonight, I will be discussing the parts that are needed in the voltage regulator that will be assembling any moment, and I would like to discuss the parts. I'll be assembling a 3.3 voltage regulator to power up my assembled EM radios because the power supply of the EM assembled power radios is 3 volts. So I will be using a 3.3. So I needed 3 and the voltage is 3.3. It's just fine. So the voltage regulator that I will be using is this one. I'll try to focus it. It's an LD33B. If you try to Google this one, this is actually a 3.3 voltage regulator. And I've got the pin out on this one online. That's the pin out. Terminal number 1 is ground. The middle terminal is the voltage output. And the third terminal is the voltage input. Meaning to say, if you try to put an input voltage, you could measure out a voltage output between ground, and what will come out will be a 3.3 volts. 3.3. Okay, I'll go back to, and the configuration or the setup for this one to be assembled, we needed to draw the setup. What I will be needing here is a step-down transformer, a rectifier diode. I got the 3.3 voltage regulator, 2 filter capacitors for both the voltage input and output to the voltage regulator. I'll be using a 330 microfarad 50 volts. Okay? And I'll be using a breadboard. Okay? A breadboard. This is easy to use. Just insert your wires and do the terminals and do the connection. Okay? To discuss the setup, the step-down transformer, the input voltage is 120. The voltage output is actually 20 volts. Line to line, the blue and blue are actually 20 volts. But this got a center tap. So between center tap and blue, one end, it's 10.2, 10.25. This is 10.25. I'll just be using the black terminal, the center tap, and one blue terminal because the output of this one is 10.2 volts AC. And I checked the specification of the voltage regulator. The maximum input voltage should be 15 volts. Okay, so if I input 10 volts, okay, it's fine. But if I will input 20 volts by using the two blue and blue, that's 20 volts. Okay, it might burn the voltage regulator. So I will just be using the center tap in one line, the blue terminal, one end terminal. To rectify the voltage going to the voltage regulator, I'll be using a diode, and this is the diode. The specification of this one, I got it. It's 1N5408. The maximum current that it could give is 3 amperes. This is to be used as a rectifier diode. And the reverse voltage is 1000 volts. So since this is a low voltage circuit and this is 1000, this diode is very safe to use on this low voltage circuit. Okay? To create more power on the input and output of the regulator, I'll be placing a 330 microfarad across here on this portion. And also on the output. There is too much power here. it will supply the voltage regulator. So what will come out will still be a good power supply on the output. So for both the input or output on the regulator, I'll be using a 330 microfarad and 50 volts. The voltage rating of the capacitor is 50 volts, and since we are only encountering 3.3 on the output and around 10 volts on the input, this capacitor is very safe. Okay? And that's it. These are the setup which will be assembling any moment. I could not show you the actual assembly because it will take time to assemble. But as soon as I finish, I'll show you, okay, showing the output voltage to be 3.3, okay, and the voltage input on this one. This is a rectifier, so the AC coming here will be rectified by this diode here. So what will come into the, what you call this, regulator will be a voltage DC, okay. The current will just enter the diode for the positive alternation because this is just a half-wave rectifier. I just use a half-wave rectifier, meaning one diode, because the current required on the output is just minimal for some amplified modulation receiver circuits. 3 amperes is good enough, okay? So if we try to power up our AM radios, the sound should be very good because it is giving enough power to power up the circuit. Okay, good evening from Los Angeles. I just discussed the procedure on how to assemble a 3.3 voltage regulator by using an LD33B voltage regulator, this one, and a diode to rectify the input to the voltage regulator, a 1N1408. And to add more power for both the input and output, I'll be using a 330 microfarad capacitor connected between the lines and the ground. Okay, good evening from Los Angeles. This is Professor David J. Delfrey.